What's up, people of YouTube? This is True Warlord here, and excuse my nostrils of mass destruction. They're still fucked up and nasty. So I'm bringing you guys a different video today, and I'm actually going to talk about my childhood a little bit and where I come from as a person, not my gaming side of things. I want to talk about how video games have helped me, just the things that I've kind of been through in my life. Now, my life is not the worst out of everybody's. Like, I'm sure in the future there's going to be people who watch this video and be like, oh, you're a fucking pussy, you didn't have to deal with shit. Well, to me it was pretty bad, considering that it's the only things that I've gone through, and it sucked. Okay, so first of all, I want to mention the gameplay in the background. You're going to be seeing a gameplay where Corey and I think his cousin, we just absolutely destroy some people. I think I go 23-1 or 24-1 or something like that on Aftermath, which is funny because this is a really bad map. But anyways, these kids were complete scrubs, so I hope you enjoy the background gameplay. But let's get into the commentary at hand. So when I was born, I was with my mom, obviously, and I've heard stories that I wasn't born in a hospital. I was born in a bathtub. I don't know if that's true. Anyways, I was born, and I don't know if I was born in a bathtub or a hospital or whatever. I'm pretty sure I was born in a hospital. I don't have my birth certificate, really. I mean, my grandma says she has my birth certificate, but yeah, anyways, I'll get into that here in a minute. So I was born, and I was with my mom for a while. I don't know how long, but I do know that it was maybe like a month, and then I was delivered to my grandmother's doorstep by some, she says it was a black guy, and she had opened the door after she heard like a knock at the door, and I was there, and then when she shut the door and turned at the window to the like right of the door, she could see just a pair of eyes like in the distance kind of looking, and that's kind of creepy. But I've never really met the guy, but I always called him my stork because he just kind of delivered me, and that's kind of how that goes. So I lived with my grandmother and my grandpa and my sister for a while in Omaha, Nebraska, until my sister, she did some pretty bad stuff in her teenage years, and she got sent off to it was like a foster home for bad kids, basically. She wasn't there very long, maybe like half a year, and she traveled to a couple of them. One of them was very abusive towards her, and yeah, so she's been through a lot too, but this is my story, so I'll just leave that part out. And then after that, as I was growing up, my grandma's dream, one of my grandmother's dreams, was to own a motel. So we found a motel in South Dakota, Mobridge, South Dakota, and at this point I was like going into kindergarten, and so my grandma bought this hotel with my grandfather, and shortly before we had moved to South Dakota to run this motel, my grandpa passed away, and he had visited the hospital beforehand, and he wasn't very old, like maybe early 60s, if that, and he had visited the hospital for chest pains, and the doctor said that there was nothing wrong with him. He didn't have any issues. He was just having heartburn or something like that. So the hospital sent him home, and that night he had a heart attack, and at the hospital he died. And it's really sad, but maybe it happened for the better. Don't know. And then moving forward a little ways, the next day, like after everybody had gotten home from the hospital, the doctor's office called my grandmother asking if they could harvest his eyes for donorship for somebody else. Now, it's kind of fucked up that somebody would do that, but maybe it had to be done because he was an organ donor. I don't really know if he was or not, but my grandma couldn't even like take the call. She had to give the phone off to my uncle, and so yeah, it was a really shitty situation. It was sad. I don't remember it, obviously, but that's how that goes. So we continued on, and we moved to South Dakota, and once we were in South Dakota, we kind of did things, and this is where my history kind of gets a little bit shaky. So in South Dakota, I was young and stupid. My only friend that I had, well, I guess I shouldn't say my only friend. One of my friends that I had, his name was Justin. I don't remember his last name, but his name was Justin. He was Indian, and he was a troublemaker. He was twice my age, if not more. So, I'm in kindergarten, first grade at this point, and he's like 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there. I don't even know how I met him, to be honest. And he wanted to go out and do shit that was bad, and I was looking up to him. So I would go out and do the same thing. I remember this one particular instance. We were at some like baseball park, and at this baseball park, uh, there was this barrel. This was shortly after the 4th of July. Well, we were screwing around and lighting off fireworks in this barrel, and it caught on fire. And that night, I got taken home by the police for, I don't know what the exact charge would have been, but I got taken home by the police that night. Then another instance, we were at the junkyard and we were stealing keys out of cars because we were bad kids, and I got taken home by the police then too. And again, I'm in like first grade, so my grandma's seeing this. She just dealt with my sister doing the same stuff, but as a teenager, things aren't looking good. My mom's a drug addict. She's been going downhill. One of my uncles has also gone downhill, and just my grandma's husband just died. So things are very, very, very difficult. She's trying to keep a motel running, which eventually shuts down because she can't keep it open. And life is really, really sad. So we moved back down to Nebraska, which is where I'm currently at. We move into this little tiny town called Virginia, Nebraska. And we move across the street from my uncle, who I'm not going to say I don't like him, but we haven't always met eye to eye on everything. I've never had a guy in my life, really. I've always been around girls for the most part. I've never really had a father influence there. So, that's kind of how that is. And then in and out of my life, my mom would come in. She would come here for a year, 6 months. She would leave and she'd go back to doing drugs. She would end up in prison. She would come back, off and on. And here recently, she just left again, actually, after being clean and here for almost 2 years. So it really, really sucks. It's shitty. If anybody has to go through this, I am very sorry. I know how it feels. And so basically, that's almost it. And once we moved into Virginia, I lived across the street from him, and I went to a school called Lewiston, Nebraska, in Lewiston, called Lewiston Consolidated Schools. And this school is one of the best schools that there has to be. It's small, it's tiny, there's very little rules, but it's a good school at the same time. So I'm glad I go to school here. I would have to say that a lot of the reasons why I'm not who I would have been staying in South Dakota has to do with the school, and it's a relief to have something like that. Anyways, then we moved to Barnston, Nebraska, outside of Barnston, Nebraska, to an old farmhouse where we had raised some cattle and chickens and stuff like that for food, and I was always down in the creek. This is before my video game addiction really started, so I'm in like 2nd or 3rd grade at this point. Then in about, 4th grade, we moved to, end of 4th grade, beginning of 5th grade, we moved to Lewiston, the town where my school's at, and this is where the video game addiction started. I got COD 4, and it's just, this is where it really, really began, And I'm thankful that I had a really, really good grandmother, because she always bought anything and everything that I asked for. Like, even if I shouldn't have had it, to be completely honest, even if I shouldn't have had it, she bought it for me. So, a lot of parents wouldn't do that. Like, if I wouldn't have gotten as far as I am now, if it wasn't for her, to be completely honest. She bought me a lot of the video games that I had. She bought me a lot of the technology and stuff that I had. Not now. Pretty much everything I have now was bought with my own money, but at the time. So I'm really thankful for that. And my mom still does come in and out of my life, and it's pretty dramatic, and it sucks because you go from having, a lot of money and you're able to survive and you have food and all of these things and it's not a big deal, and then you go to having absolutely nothing, and it sucks. It absolutely sucks. I hate it. But that's just the way it ends up being sometimes. So then we moved to, when we moved out of the house in Lewiston, we moved into Beatrice, which is a bigger town or city or whatever you want to call it. Anyways, so we moved into Beatrice, Nebraska, which is a bigger city or town or, whatever you want to call it. It's got, I don't know, like 13,000 people, maybe. And we just moved out of a town that literally had 60 people in it. So, get the idea of this in your head about how small of a town we were in compared to what we're in now. And we were so poor that we literally lived in a motel room for about 2 months. We did not have enough money to get a house. We ate canned food. Like, we literally ate canned food for 2 months. We'd get stuff from commodities or like I don't know what it's called really, but it's like food that they give away, the food pantry. And it would be like canned peaches and just soup and corn and shit. That's what we ate because we had literally no money. We couldn't get anything. Any money that we had to go to paying some stuff off. and it was miserable. It took a while to get a house, and it was a very shitty situation. So after that, we actually finally found ourselves a house. We moved into it. You know, my gaming kept getting better and farther and farther and farther. And then that was during the Modern Warfare 3 area. Then Black Ops 2 comes along, and that's where things started to look good. Like, no matter what happened, no matter what kind of douchebag things my mom or, you know, parents or family did, it didn't really matter because my I had my video games, and it helped me cope with a lot of things, and it was nice to have. So one thing that I haven't told you guys yet about my life was how I met my brother. When I lived in Barnston, we had gotten a phone call to my house from my brother, and I had no idea that this was my brother at the time, but he calls, and he's like, "This is Tyler." So I answer the phone, and he's like, "This is Tyler," and I'm like, "Sorry, I don't know Tyler," and I go to hang up the phone, because I didn't even know I had a brother, right? And I'm third, fourth grade, somewhere in there. I'm like, I don't know a Tyler, sorry. And so I hang up the phone, and my grandma's there. She's like, no, wait. So she takes the phone, and that's when I discover that I have a brother, and he's like 16 years old. And I had no idea that I had a brother. And so we made arrangements. We met each other for a good 2 or 3 years. I went down there to see them in Florida with his foster family, and I love to see him. I made friends down there, and it was truly amazing. The sad part is that he wasn't able to stay. I don't want to say clean because it's not like he's a drug addict, but he wasn't able to stay out of trouble really, and that's kind of where we are now. I really hope to see him again. I do love my brother. I love the very little bit of family that I do have, even though it doesn't feel like we're a family a lot of the time. But that's okay. Anyways, guys, that's my life story. There's not a whole lot to it, you know, but it hasn't been the easiest life. It hasn't been a mom, dad, brother, sister, family pet, you know, do school sports kind of lifestyle, and it sucks, but hey, that's just how it was. That's how the cards were dealt. And at the end of the day, I'm happy. I've got a beautiful girlfriend, and I've got all the electronics I could want. I got a job. I got some good friends, some shitty friends. Just things are looking up. Anyways, guys, deuces.